thank you all for coming out. Judge, I want to say a special thanks to you for agreeing to do this. For 24 years now, you and I have been working together, and I know no one who has a greater servant's heart than you, and I appreciate your not only having that heart, but I also appreciate there being some intellect to go along with it. So I want to thank the members of the commission in an official way as well, and as a group, for answering this state's call to them, and for being willing to go help their neighbors. You know, you've heard a succession of people that have come to this podium and talked this morning and addressed this commission about the impact of a natural disaster, and how those disasters impact businesses, how they impact families, how they impact your community. You've seen the damage firsthand with your tour. You went out and most of us were exposed to it, and some other even more drastic pictures earlier. So as you process what you've heard and what you've seen, we ask you to even perform at a higher level than you already are. Bring to bear your experience, your wisdom, your leadership abilities on the challenge of speeding this state's return from this hurricane season and setting the standard for hurricane seasons to come. The 2008 hurricane season will go down in history as the costliest in Texas history. In just 8 weeks, our state was battered by 3 hurricanes and 1 major tropical storm. Hurricane Dolly and Ike were especially brutal. For the first time in Texas history, the President of the United States declared every county along the Gulf Coast a disaster. When you tally up the damage of the 2008 hurricane season, you end up with an eye-popping total of over $29 billion. Since the winds died down from that succession of storms, Texans have been working to put their lives back together, sifting through the wreckage, rebuilding their homes and their businesses, and waiting for the federal government to show up with the aid the way that they did after Hurricane Katrina. Sadly, we're still waiting. After Hurricane Ike hit, I listened to leaders at the local level. I consulted with our emergency management experts, went face to face with our citizens living in shelters who were deeply affected by the devastation. In response, I approached the federal government with some basic requests. Cover 100% of the cost associated with debris removal, emergency protective measures, urgent public infrastructure projects for 18 months. I've always thought that was our deal. We work real hard in Texas, and we send a lot of money to Washington, D.C. to help them operate that government. And when a tragedy of substantial proportion occurs, I've always thought our relationship was, we're going to help you get back on your feet again as soon as you can. And I tell them that's smart, because then Texas is going to get money flowing back to you again sooner. Makes sense for Texas to get back on our feet. I ask them to pay a more reasonable share of our infrastructure restoration, release the resources to set up our alternative temporary housing assistance programs for our citizens. You know, the local FEMA folks worked hard here. They put in long hours. But it seems that the bureaucracy has prevented them from delivering on our bottom line request. And that is simply treat Texas like you treated the folks in Louisiana after Katrina, the folks in Mississippi after Katrina. That's simply what we were asking the federal government to do. You know, when somebody doesn't keep a commitment, when they don't take care of business, then somebody else has to. And that's what we've done in Texas, Mayor. And that's what this commission's done. And that's what this state will continue to do, is to charge into that gap. Your state needs you. Your state needs you to develop a roadmap for recovery and renewal after this most devastating storm in Texas history. You were chosen because of your direct knowledge of the situation, your relationship with the affected communities, your proven commitment to making a difference. As those of you in the audience look at this group of very talented men and women, you know their history, their backgrounds, and that's exactly what I have described. These individuals were chosen because of their direct knowledge of the situation. So, and make no mistake, as I shared with you in a private conversation over there, I'm going to continue to very aggressively use every resource available to ensure that Texas receives the dollars that is appropriate to come this way. But in this situation and in future disasters, Texas must find ways to get emergency relief to our neighbors as quickly as possible, and to let the state deal with those issues that FEMA has been dragging their feet with. Craig Island and I are talking about how do we create a mechanism in this state where we don't have to rely as much on the federal government to immediately be able to give our citizens the help that they need. And Craig's going to be probably carrying the legislation. I know he's going to be working hand in hand with me and the legislature to set aside money for a disaster relief contingency fund. We don't know what that range is, but somewhere between $100 and $150 million would be a good start. In the coming weeks, I look forward to working with our legislators to hammer out the final amount so that Texans will know that they're not going to be just completely beholden to the whims of a federal government that all too often the wheels grind horribly slow. This fund would allow devastated Texas communities to begin taking care of essential needs immediately, like debris removal and emergency temporary housing for the displaced. Then it would be replenished when FEMA finally does distribute the dollars to cover those expenses. That fund is one key way for us to help our citizens whose lives are turned upside down by these disasters. And the fact of the matter is we need to find some other tools to use. So be creative. I mean, think way outside of the box, if you will. Look for some less obvious sources of funding to supplement the sources that we would normally look to first. Agencies like FEMA and HUD and SBA and USDA, to new, innovative, additional ways to fund disasters and disaster recoveries. I hope everyone in this room, as well as the members of this commission, will draw upon this very diverse collection of professional backgrounds, research the testimony that's going to be and has been compiled by the legislators and the insights provided by our Division of Emergency Management, and craft a plan to improve the way that our state responds to these disasters.